Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to First Cut. This is our season series finale of Succession. We're here to talk about, obviously, the finale that we just saw, but we're also talking about the season as a whole and how we feel it lived up to the hype. I'm here with RB3 and Sabrina, here to break it all down. Guys, how are we feeling? Succession is finally over. How do you feel about, let's start with the finale, Sabrina.
I think, first of all, from top to bottom, especially after re-binging the entire season before we got to the start of season 4 or the entire series, I feel like every episode in this fourth season was truly one that I ended and I was like, you know what, this is an all-timer. And then the next one would happen and I'm like, this is an all-timer. And that's the exact same way that I feel about this finale. I think it wrapped up all of the stories, maybe not in the way that I would hope or supporting the people that I wanted to see kind of come out of it a little bit better, but it makes sense and it set it up genuinely throughout the entire series. And I think Jesse Armstrong and everyone, all the writers and everyone involved in the show had such a clear vision on what they wanted to do with these characters. And so it's at the same time, it's like bittersweet because it makes so much sense. But I didn't want to see a lot of the things that we ended up seeing.
Okay. RP3, what'd you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoyed the finale. I feel like it stuck the landing all the way through. You know, we've always talked about Succession on this channel. We did the Meaning of podcast for the first 2 seasons, and I just love the show in general. And I think they built up so much for the show and so many like ways it could end that you weren't really sure which direction it was going to go. So I feel like there wasn't really any direction that would have satisfied like a majority of Succession fans, you know. I definitely feel like the way they ended it here was probably the most like the best setup, you know, finale in terms of like the pieces that they laid, like you said, Sabrina, throughout all the seasons, not even just through season 4. So I think it was a nice. I think it did do a nice job of ending it. And again, you know, I these characters are like, you know, unlikable in the most likable way. You know, for if you're a Kendall fan, you're like, he was just that close. You know, if you're Roman, you're like, he's almost there. Like, if you're Shiv, we're getting spoiler territory. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a Shiv fan, you could I feel like there's some people who would feel like she got stabbed in the back. There's some people who feel like she won out at the end of the day. So, but yeah, I definitely think that this was a crazy, crazy show with a crazy finale that ended in a way that made the most sense to me too.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I feel like, I don't know, I think the season finale really encapsulated exactly what the show is, showing you the good and the bad of all these siblings and all the Roys, right? Where they're like quirky, funny, supportive when they have to be, and then they're backstabby, evil when the temperature goes up and when they have to be in difficult situations. And that's what we saw, obviously, with the siblings throughout the entire episode, but also with every other character in this show, where it shows you this is who they've always been. And I think a lot of people might forget that, but we can see them having fun and, you know, having a good old time. But at the same time, when the pressure is up, let's not forget what these people have done and what they are capable of, and just being absolutely emotional wrecks and making mega consequential decisions as a move, instead of, you know, actually taking people and mass majority of people in mind. So I thought the season finale was great, man. I absolutely did. Let's start with what it started with, which was Kendall and Shiv being on opposite sides trying to get Rome on their side. And we start with that first half of the episode with the siblings finally uniting when Shiv, Kendall, and Rome find out that she's not going to be the CEO and that Matsson's actually going to backstab her. How'd you guys feel about the sibling dynamic throughout the hostileness at the beginning, and then obviously the redemption at the end, and then finally what we got at the very end, which was the huge fight? Sabrina.
I have so many complicated emotions about this because I knew it would never happen. And we've noticed time and time again with these siblings that even the times they come together, one little thing can fall, one little thing can change, and then they're right back to being completely separated again. So where we started off with Shiv, it made a lot of sense that she wanted to watch her own back at the end of the day. And like, I don't agree with her. I don't agree with her teaming up with Matsson against her brothers in this way. I think maybe there could have been a better outcome if that didn't happen. I think they're always fated to fail, each and every single one of them, with what they wanted to accomplish. But I think they could have potentially, which I guess they still did, keep it in the family a little bit, but I just think there was a better way that they could have came together. So I knew it was going to be fleeting. But when it finally did happen in this episode, once Shiv did find out that she is once again being betrayed by every single person in her life, whether it's Logan, like all of her siblings, Tom has betrayed her many, many times, and now Matsson again. And then Matsson also, it was such a hard scene to watch where Matsson is talking to Tom and telling him like, yeah, like I want to sleep with her. And so once again, she's just boiled down to this woman in a tank of sharks that are always trying to take what they can from her whenever it's convenient for them. But whenever they have to then repay her in some way, whether that be making her the American CEO, you know, since she has helped him build this up and build those connections where this deal will go through, it's just really hard to watch, like, as a woman. And I do not condone any of Shiv's actions in this episode. But I understand where she is coming from, where she's trying to watch her own back. Seeing the siblings together, I loved it. I love how they revert right back to their childhoods. And what Shiv talked about at her father's funeral when she said, like, we used to just like play outside of his office. We had no idea the scale of what he was doing in there and what he was making happen and the connections that he had and the people he would talk to. And that's kind of what they did this whole series. They were just playing outside his office, trying to figure out where they can move forward with all of this stuff. And it's poetic in that way that when they do team up, they just go right back to their childhoods.
RB3.
Yeah, no, I think it is funny. And I think, you know, for me, you know, it's so funny. I feel like just of the way we're talking about now, Sabrina, I feel like you're very anti-Tom, and I feel like I'm personally very pro-Tom. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Tom, you know, as much of a sellout and as
You're dirty for that.
No, I mean,
y'all gotta fight.
And I mean, as much as like a sellout and as much as like of a goof he is, like, he definitely got the short end of the stick. Like, I feel like a lot of times too. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I felt like just from the beginning, like, I know, I'm going all the way back to season 1 here, but like on the wedding night, getting asked, you know, to be in an open relationship, like that's a stab in the heart. I feel like that's deeper than any like kind of business stuff. You know what I mean? Season 2, she was sleeping with the author guy, so it was just like a lot going on. You know what I mean? Like, Tom, you know, he you know, this season, when she was like bidding to be American CEO, you know, Matsson was going around saying like, yeah, Tom's about to get fired, Tom's about to get axed, and then shit was like right there next to him. So I'm kind of like, oh man, like, where is Tom going to go? Because like, and I think that was also like another like cool piece of setup that they set up all throughout the season is like the contention between Matsson and Tom, the contention between Tom and Greg, because that relationship is like always the most hysterical thing, like the abusive, you know, a printer versus the apprentice versus the master or whatever. And then they and now it's like very clear that Matsson is gonna basically be like Tom, and Greg and Tom's basically gonna be the new Greg, you know, for like the new like kind of structure. He's gonna get slapped around, pretty much cucked, it looks like too. But though I don't think like Shiv would ever like, you know, give it up to Matsson though. I think that's why I think to me, I'm a little bit like more resolved in the ending, because at least like Shiv is, you know, she's definitely like the best, like morally the best character. And that's like saying like who's the tallest kid in the kindergarten, you know what I mean? Like,
yikes.
Like, you know, but like who's like the least morally corrupt? I'll definitely say Shiv. So she wins out the most at the end because of that. And I think even though she doesn't keep the family business, she does have a new family with Tom, with the new child that she's about to, you know, have with Tom. Like, I don't know if they're going to keep a relationship, but there's something like at least tiny bit hopeful there. Like when they're holding hands at the end, you know?
I didn't see any of that, bro.
Absolutely
I saw the
not.
opposite of that. Did they hold hands?
She
They
grabbed
just placed hands on top of each other so like
I mean,
coldly.
Not even interlocked. And also the way he did it, he's looking away and he just places his hand almost as a command. It's almost like, okay, now here, and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
And also I will say, and sorry to interrupt and come in again, but
I'm good. Yeah.
with the Tom situation, before he still didn't know that, of course, that he was going to be CEO or was even in contention. And like you said, he gets cucked like in the workplace, and not even like actually, but like just consistently. Like Shiv always had the upper hand. Her father talked about it, like, you are marrying a man beneath you because you are afraid that somebody will betray you, like she always has been. And he continued to do that. So at this point, she still had the upper hand when they had the conversation, and she's like, you know, do we want to make our relationship work? And even then he said, I don't know. And now with his newfound position of power and him having the upper hand, she is basically just in the position that her mother was. She is nothing. She's just the wife of the CEO. She's going to be unhappy. She's going to be distant to her child. There's no way. They didn't break this generational curse. It continues now. The poison seep through, and they are all going to experience that. Maybe Roman is probably going to come out like the best out of all the siblings, but not looking great.
Yeah, but again, I feel like I think that's perfect, exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
but it lays it out in a way which, I mean, Taylor Swift, Ice Spice have that new song Karma. I mean, Karma comes back, bro. Karma's like, I mean, Shiv did a lot of shitty stuff, man.
Yeah.
And the way that Kendall did a lot of shitty stuff, and finally he gets a little bit of his own karma. And
Yeah.
then Rome with freaking President Nazi. I mean, everything is coming full circle where they're like, oh shit, we did all this bullshit. That's because we are bullshit. I mean, even Rome says it. He literally says that.
Yeah.
And it's like it comes back in a way in which Tom kind of wins. and I was thinking about how I saw someone say Tom didn't win because he's gonna get abused by Mattson. He's gonna get, but that's what Tom has always done though. But this time he's gonna do it as CEO.
He's
like
a professional.
He wins.
Yeah, he's a professional bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, that's exactly what this is. What Tom does. He
right.
grinds. He gets beaten. He follows orders. But if he does it as CEO, he's cool with it. Like he's on top in that in a way. And I just thought it was hysterical. I thought it was so funny. I was laughing so hard when he said Tom is going to be my CEO, because it kind of goes back, like you said, RB3 to season 1, where Tom's kind of on the outside with Greg, and he puts down Greg because he gets put down by everyone else, and it's kind of this cycle of like putting people down. And then it takes me back to like season 1 where I thought Tom was funny and I liked Tom the most. And then obviously he progressively got worse. He's always been bad, but he got worse and worse as seasons went along, where I don't like anyone anymore. I just like Ewan, which is the old grandpa brother. He's the only real one there. Everyone else, I'm good with them losing. But the fact that Tom is on top is kind of this poetic, I don't know, not justice, but like this poetic meaning of the entire show.
Which, by the way, is real in a lot of times too. Like, I think Trump's like son-in-law is like Jared Kushner. He's the dude who's like running a lot of the Trump organizations. A lot of times it doesn't end up going to the actual daughter. It just ends up going to the daughter's husband, which is sad. It's unfortunate. It's like you said, Sabrina. It's like part of the misogynistic culture that is the corporate structure, corporate higher ups and stuff. But yeah, just like, you know, it's so embedded and entrenched into all the area. Like, they never even considered making Shiv the CEO for like a second. Like, every time they had the conversation, it was either like Roman Kendall or just Kendall. Like, it was never like Shiv be the main person, unless, you know, she was the CEO for Mattson. But like, that should have been, I feel like that would have been the most logical conversation to be having, especially on the last episode. Like, yo, she's the only one who didn't support the Nazis. She's the only one who didn't, like, you know, do a lot of like stupid stuff. So like, yeah, y'all gotta like start sharing things out. But I don't know.
Well, it's the thing with like Shiv is that she does hold and has created a power for herself with people, like with politicians in that world especially. And then with the experience that she has with her father and her brothers and everything like that, it made sense that Mattson was almost intimidated by her. Like, he was intimidated by the fact that she did have some power and he wouldn't be able to pull her strings like a little puppet. She was the one that pushed to drop the numbers in the way she saw would be best fit, in the way, like, as a businesswoman. And it all made sense, but Mattson didn't like that. And when they had that conversation, I believe in the beginning of this episode, this finale one, where he's like, "Oh, what's up with Tom?" And she's like, "Yeah, Tom will be pushed around. Tom will listen to whoever. Tom is ready to do that no matter what." Because of course she was trying to, yeah, she was trying to like help secure his future job. And then, you know, Mattson hears that and he's like, absolutely, that's who I want. I want to be the one in power, and I want to be able to pull the strings on whoever is below me.
Yeah. And I mean, that's exactly what we saw in this finale. I think it worked out really well because we got to see a little bit of that dynamic, and we got to see who Mattson is too, because Mattson is obviously a piece of shit as well. Every character in the show just lives up to the hype as far as being an absolute worst human being ever. But yeah, the way that Shiv played her cards and the way that Tom played his cards, it was pretty funny, man, because if you think about it, we saw Tom come after that meeting knowing that he was now CEO, and Greg comes in. I want to get to Tom and Greg. And Greg comes in and he's like, "Yo, what happened?" And he's like, he makes a joke instead of telling him straight up. And that's why Greg takes that information as far as Shiv not being CEO to Kendall. And that leads obviously to the blow up that we see with Tom and Greg. But eventually they make up in their own weird way at the very end.
Yeah.
How'd you guys feel about their romantic ending?
I mean, it was appropriate. You know, they needed that reconciliation. I mean,
exactly.
They're what they call themselves, the filthy brothers, the
disgusting brothers.
The disgusting brothers, right? They need to get back to being nasty with each other, talking crap. And just I love how he was like profiling, like Frank and Carl, they're gone. Jerry, I'll keep her around. Like it's just like the casual callousness of like the employees and stuff. But yeah, I'm glad they got together.
Yeah, I was in a place with these characters, and of course, like we have mentioned a million times, even with a character I support, like personally, I'm a Kendall girly, love Kendall 24/7. Don't condone all of his actions, but I understand. But with these two, I have always disliked them so much. Even though Tom, I have found him to be a little slimy weasel, and then Greg, I actually respect Greg, I think, much more than I do Tom. I understand why he would go to Kendall with this information. Of course, he wants to be on everyone's good side because he's been caught in the middle of this crossfire for so much time where he just has to watch his own back. And it's funny that Tom mentioned like, yo, you know, you're getting paid $200,000. Like you're going to get probably a big ass pay cut. And of course, after this, after him going behind his back and talking to Kendall, he's going to keep his job. He's probably going to get a good pay cut. It's probably going to be miserable. So again, it's all poetic, and maybe they could get back to their antics. Maybe Tom does have a little bit of respect for him for going behind his back, because that's the same way Logan had that respect for Tom after Tom went behind Shiv's back to give Logan the heads up at the end of season 3. So maybe there's some respect there, but I don't like him.
That's what I was gonna say too. I think I love seeing Greg's progression, like from season 1 having no idea how to like play these business savvy moves to now in this finale, like he's kind of the key and the anchor of like a lot of these moving parts. So I definitely love seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like obviously we've talked ad nauseum about how pretty much every character has some pretty dark spots on their resume, but the fact that we got to see specifically the two brothers, Kendall and Rome, specifically Kendall, obviously, because he's the one who fought to be CEO as much as possible, and the fact that he wanted it more than anyone. And yet he couldn't get it at the end, and he turned back into his basic primal Kendall form, which is, again, a piece of shit. And he shows his true colors at the end, obviously, blowing up the way he did. But it's funny how I kind of want to get to that part. Let's get to the decision that Shiv made to not vote for Kendall and to vote for Mattson instead. Yeah.
Well, first of all, before we get to that, was I the only one who thought when they kept mentioning Lawrence as the new CEO, was I the only one who thought they were going to bring back the Asian guy from season 1?
Is that his name? Lawrence?
Yeah, Lawrence. That was the Asian.
Oh, that was Lawrence. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, because they were like, "Oh, we're gonna bring Lawrence." And I'm like, "Is that? Am I thinking that's the right guy?" And I literally Googled him and like, yeah, Rob Lang. It might be a different Lawrence though, because I think they said the Lawrence was like Lawrence. I don't know, but his character name was Lawrence Yee, in the first season of Succession. So maybe that, I thought that was like a nice way to like tie it, because even there's a whole gang of Twitter that's like, oh, Lawrence is gonna come back, like this is gonna be the real he's gonna be the real CEO, and I thought they were just like kind of teasing that a little bit, but that would have been nice. But seeing that competition for who, all of them vying for the CEO position, especially at the very end,
Yeah, but how'd you guys feel about Shiv not voting for Kendall? Did you feel like that was a spur of the moment, right decision? Where did she come to that decision, Sabrina?
I think after, they had that very sweet kind of, it almost felt like a resolution to all of their trauma that they had dealt with. A lot of them have been very open about their own specific abuse by the hands of their parents. I think the second they got back into New York and she sees Kendall sitting in the seat, putting his feet up, acting the way he does, she knows that he's just going to be him again or be Logan again. And this is going to continue. And so I've seen some people say, and I've heard from friends and stuff like that, this was like a sacrifice. I don't see it that way. I think she still made this decision out of selfishness just to have the best possible outcome for herself, because we've seen it time and time again with her brothers, where whenever they were in power and they would kind of loop her in, they still kept her just a little bit enough on the outside. And that's how it would have been. And that's what she saw was about to come for herself. So then she made, I guess, the better choice out of the worst possible outcomes that could happen.
That's fascinating, because I definitely that changing moment. I think when you're right, like when Kendall was putting his feet on the desk and acting all arrogant, I think that was like part of her like decision making. I also think a big push, my opinion of why Shiv did it was after she found out that Tom was one of the guys too that was being interviewed. Like Tom was the guy that was going to be the replacement. So I think like after she thought she saw Kendall being the typical Kendall, D-bag, douchebag. She knows Tom would be otherwise in power, which she, regardless of how she feels about Tom, she probably feels like she could puppet him a little bit too. Like she could probably be like the CEO behind the scenes. So she's like, all right, F it. I'm not going to let Kendall run it. I'm going to just let Tom do it and I'll figure out things with Tom later. So I think that was like a little bit like of her like decision making after Tom like let her in, like I'm interviewing it. Because she was mad at it initially, but as she took that anger into, going hard and pushing for more votes. But I also think that's also like, that was like her backup plan. Like, all right, I don't like Kendall. I like Tom marginally a little bit more than Kendall. So let me rock on that side.
Yeah, I think you guys are all spot on. I feel like that's exactly what it was, where she saw Kendall being an a-hole and being who he is. And then she kind of remembers, she's like, damn, I forgot, like this guy with power is going to be like the absolute worst. This guy in a limited position of power, at least he's tolerable. Whereas I know that if Tom is the one in power, at least I have an angle in there, and at least I have a way to, communicate. Whereas Kendall's always going to shut me out no matter what. So yeah, I think it made sense. And it's definitely wild to see. What do you guys feel about Kendall's reaction and then the fight scene, if you want to call it that, in that scene, Sabrina?
I get it. I understand what it feels like I understand from his perspective after seeing this story unfold, not myself, obviously, because I have not been child of a CEO, but he was groomed from such a young age that he is going to pick up this mantle. Like he was fit for something bigger, and something Logan did with all the kids is push them down, use their insecurities against them, but at the same time tell them, but if you overcome this, you got to be a killer and then you could be CEO. And then he's a legit killer and has also taken the times, the funeral episode, when we see Roman crumble and then we see Kendall take charge, and off the top of his head, or maybe he kind of had a little bit something in his back pocket ready in case that would arise. He showed up for the occasion, and he could have very well stepped into Logan's shoes and became just like him. So either way, this cycle of abuse that's coming down from their parents is continuing on with these kids no matter what. But then it's either, Logan's in charge, or Tom is going to become just as bad as Logan eventually, even though he's not an actual sibling. I 100% see that maybe right now he could be a little bit more bumbling. He can have Matsson pull some strings. But when it comes to his relationship with Shiv and his relationship to the rest of the family, he's going to be like a Logan figure and to his own child. So I understand why Kendall reacted in the way that he did. He was finally, we've seen it built up time and time again. He was one vote away, and it's his sister who was already locked in before this. So in his mind, he's like, I have it. I have it. It's for me. So then to see that hesitation and to see everything that he was groomed for since he was a child crumble all around him in a matter of seconds, it's going to bring out that like just rage, like just absolutely primal rage. And, I don't think he should have pushed Shiv. I don't think, Roman needed a little like slap after like supporting the fascist. I'm like, he kind of deserved that. But like, I don't think Shiv deserved to be pushed around and stuff like that. But I think taking the low blow of bringing up the vehicular manslaughter stuff, which he told them at his most vulnerable, the most vulnerable we've seen him in the entire show, and we've seen the siblings as a whole, was just absolutely uncalled for, especially in the worst moment of his life.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me. They pried on the two biggest pieces of insecurity in Kendall's life, right back to really three. His insecurity of being CEO, the insecurity of the vehicle manslaughter, and his like trauma and guilt because of that. And then also, which I think it was like new information, I don't think they ever talked about this before, is the fact that he's not really even like truly related to like them. Like they're talking about like how he's not really bloodline. I guess they're implying that maybe Rava like had a I don't know, one of those artificial inseminations or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. But that's just,
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
They wait until the very, very end, until that very, very moment to bring that up. So yeah, you do kind of see why that anger would literally spark and peak and just cause him to blow like the biggest fuse and get like mad violent. When you're poking at his three biggest things at the very most crucial part of his life, it definitely is going to be effective. I did want to ask y'all though, I saw some people online were talking about that scene before when Roman was hugging Kendall, and then Kendall kind of like pushed Roman a little closer to his shoulder. A lot of people online were saying, oh, that was really Kendall like opening up those stitches again, so like he'll look bad during the board meeting. I don't know if y'all like caught that as well, if y'all like interpreted that, but yeah, I don't know. I thought that would have been a little crazy too. But yeah, just all the violence on Roman, you know what I mean? Roman needs a little peace, even though he is, lined up with fascist, neo-Nazis. He don't keep hitting him in the face and don't keep opening up his stitches. It's nasty.
Yeah, I think that's what it was too. What you said, it was him trying to make him look like he's more battered up and bruised and get more sympathy, or sympathy votes, I guess,
Yeah.
or sympathy look.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing too with Roman's pain and insecurities and stuff like that. He always kind of takes it out on like pain to himself. We even saw that in the conversations him and Jerry have had in the past, where she is degrading him and that's what he likes, or like the physical pain or anything like that. So I think in that moment, he's kind of pushing up in power above Roman, whereas right before they were equal, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to cause you pain and you're going to know like you are below me. I have you locked down.
Yeah, I also feel that when it comes to Kendall, maybe I just read it a little differently than y'all, because I feel like every bridge that has been burned, he's burned. I think it's him doing the burning. And I feel like those kind of repercussions, as far as like, yeah, he feels bad about killing the kid, but he still killed the damn kid. And he's still trying to ignore that fact. And yeah, his family is kind of ignoring him and pushing him away, but that's because he's literally being the worst father ever and being an absolute piece of shit instead of owning up to what he's done. And yeah, he was kind of like poo-pooing Mencken, but he still at the end of the day went with Mencken because he wanted to kill the deal, because he's selfish. Like I just don't see it necessarily, like, I don't know, like I just see a child, a privileged child acting out when he doesn't get what he wants. I want the toy and I want it now. And when they're like, bro, you scream a lot and you cry like a baby, And he starts crying even more because that's kind of what Kendall is. He's a crybaby, privileged, who's used to getting what he wants. And when he didn't get it, he started crying like a little baby. And it's like, yeah, this is kind of what the show is. It's privileged kids playing at places of power that they shouldn't wield at all. And they're just being absolute the worst children. And then Rome says it right then and there. I already mentioned it, but he says, we're bullshit. We're not smart. We're not ahead of the game. We're not geniuses. We're not these, rich people who earn their money. We're literally bullshit who we're giving our funds and giving our way up to the top. And now we want more of it because we feel like we're worthy of it or deserving of it because we're the firstborn of an heir of an empire and we're some sort of like medieval kings and some bullshit. Like it's just all bullshit. All this corporate capitalistic American structure that I feel like the show was really tackling in that scene. So I don't know. I saw Kendall get exactly what he was wanting because even Shiv says it. I think she even says like, you suck at this. Like you're not good at it. I just don't think you're good at it. And I think that's part of it too, where it's like Kendall does kind of suck in places of power where he's been in positions of power. He's never been that good. And I think people see that. So I feel like him acting out was just him going back to his privileged, childish ways. But I don't know. That's just me.
I disagree.
Really?
Entirely.
You think he's a smart, powerful, good man?
I think he has the ability to be a good man. I think what he's gone through makes him kind of like cover his own tracks so much to the point where he can't be good because he will do. It's almost like Barry. It's like when, especially in seasons 2 and 3, I'm not going to talk about the next season because I know Andres hasn't seen it, but like, it's like Barry. He is trying to be good, so he keeps doing whatever possible, whether that be the most horrible things in the world, because he's like, okay, well, I just need to get out of this. And I think that's what it is with Kendall. I think even, we saw when he did expose all of the Lester stuff publicly when he was about to take the fall because his father had dirt on him seasons ago. He did that out of selfishness, but he still did it. And I think he was happy with his decision to do that, to take down his father, because I agree with him in that way since the beginning of the show that I don't think Logan should have been in power anymore for these last few seasons. I think he made a lot of reckless decisions. I think, well, of course, that he's a terrible man, but that's nothing new. I think Kendall was just trying. He was just trying his best with everything. And I think out of the siblings, he was always the one that did have the most clear head. He would also make very rational and like impulsive decisions, or not irrational. But I think he did have the good of the company in mind for a lot of things. And I think even his takeover with like Stewie and everything that was kind of coming before Logan had that dirt on him, I think that could have been something that worked out in his favor. I think his peers see it. I think he has the ability to do it, especially the most out of all the siblings, and much more than Tom ever could.
No,
RB3.
I definitely feel you. No, I mean, I definitely feel you on Kendall. Kendall is a little tough. You know what I mean? He's probably one of the more like morally gray characters because we've seen a lot of his lows. We've seen his drug addiction. We've seen his terrible rapping skills.
My boy Squiggle cooked up this beat for me. Check it. Born on the North Bank, king of the East Side, 50 years strong. Now he's rolling in a sick rod, handmade suits, raking in loot. 5-star general, yo, best salute. L to the OG, dude be the OG, and he playing.
Terrible.
Yeah. Or iconic, I should say. You know what I mean?
His boy Squiggle cooked up that beat. Okay.
I can't even. This is one but that but he does carry that white boy arrogance that's like is like pretty annoying. You know what I mean? That's like pretty like it's just like so USC. It's like ridiculous. But I definitely think I think with him, like Sabrina says, like there are strides to be good. Like he tries to be a good person, but even I think he just has the wrong contextualization of what good means. He thinks good in his mind means like being the CEO, being the boss, being his dad. Like, and I don't think he realizes that that's actually bad. Like, he's actually, coming off terribly. He's feeling, he's making other people feel bad. And then we saw that all throughout when he was trying to run that terrible campaign against his father, like in season 3, like, and he hired all these like top social media people and, all these women who were the top of the game. He just wasn't listening to him. Like he again, it's all in good effort. He just doesn't know how to do it. He just doesn't know how to be emotionally mature enough to actually lead a team. So in some senses, like, I definitely feel like he wasn't the one. And I definitely felt like him, him having him being set up as the one and having that head fake was, it felt consistent, at least with what the show's been trying to say about him. Like, he's a good guy, not a good guy, but he's an all right guy. He's just not a good leader, and I think they just decided, like, yeah, he's not that kind of leader. Whereas Tom's also not a good leader, but he's a good, like, task rabbit. He's a good, like, somebody who could just give assignments to and just he'll do it. Even down to the election thing. Like, he did the election thing and wants more credit for, like, destroying the country potentially. So
yeah, he just takes orders and follow. I mean, I think he said it perfectly in this episode when he was talking to Mattson, where he's like, I just grind. I just do what people tell me. I grind, I take it, and I just put my head down and do the work, and do the hard, decisions and all that.
But is that the like qualities of a good leader?
Absolutely not. But I don't think necessarily. I just feel like Kendall is like significantly a terrible leader, where season 2 they even showed him, I think it was season 2, where he was trying to do like new financial ventures, and even the girl said it, where he's like, well, look, I'm hip, I'm cool, don't you think I'm really smart? And she was like, you're bullshit, you're terrible. Like, the decisions he makes, he thinks he's so smart and ahead of the game. We saw it this episode too, this season, I mean, with episode 7, where he's trying to do presentations and all that, and he's trying to talk. He was awful. Like, he sucked so bad.
But it got praised.
It got praised by sycophants, by like Elon Musk fans on Twitter. Like,
that's the thing. You know what? When it gets really real,
people. Like,
when it gets really real, I take a step back and I'm like, damn, because I love Kendall as a character. I think he's one of the best television characters we have ever gotten, with how complicated he is, because that's the thing. It's like, I know he's not great. But yeah, taking a step back and having like the context of the real world in it. I know that if these siblings existed in real life, I would be sitting there on Twitter, like, absolutely, I don't know, going off about them.
That's how I kind of, I try to do it 50-50, try and view the show with both, because the show's supposed to be a commentary on our real life society, because this is kind of how it is. So I take it in as like, this guy's a piece of shit and he's kind of the worst. And every time he had a position of power, he had a chance to do something significant, and he chose to be self-absorbed and self-fulfilling, and lift himself up instead of lifting up even his kids and his family. Like, the way he reacted to his wife, I'm like, bro, you suck. Like, you're a terrible ass father and you don't give a shit except for anything about yourself. And it's like, when your wife is telling you like your daughter's having a crisis because she doesn't want her father to be, I don't know, Captain Evil of the planet and just destroy the country, you should take a look inside instead of screaming at your wife. It's just so many layers of Kendall that is just so bad. Like, I was on Team Kendall too in season 2 or 3 when he was against Logan, because I think Logan is even worse.
For sure.
And I think he should be stopped at all costs. But it's like, and maybe that's why episode 3 this season, I told RB3 Sabrina, but I reacted so differently in that episode, where I was just like, I'm not feeling a thing. But I feel like Kendall, he just has so many times to use his power for supposedly good, any kind of good that he could kind of consider in his brain, and he just never does. And I feel like that's I don't know. I think that's a bad example of someone who would be a pretty terrible, all-powerful CEO versus someone like a Tom who's just gonna follow orders of the Swedish, council or whatever the hell is gonna rule that company now. So I don't know. That's just me. But obviously, let's get to Roman too, because Roman finishes this episode by, I think the creator of the show said basically the same spot he was in the beginning, where he's just trying to figure out where he's going to go now. How'd you guys feel about Roman this episode and just this season in general?
Yeah, Oh, sorry, what were you gonna say? Go
Oh,
ahead.
no. You start.
Nah, I mean, Roman, he needs a little development. He still needs a little help, needs a little development. He hasn't fully grown up all the way. He's getting closer. I mean, he definitely showed a lot of growth from, like you said, season one, trying to work at them amusement parks, like, and taking it back there, and then he did. And there was that one, I think it was season 2 or season 3, when they had to go on that foreign mission at a different country, and they ended up getting held up at gunpoint. So obviously, Roman, he's been through a lot of like traumatic stuff, like real traumatic stuff. The protests, getting punched out, like he's been through some real stuff.
He brought that on himself.
I was gonna say he just ran into a group of people and started pushing them.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, and someone even
what?
tried to help them
How is
and
that
then or help
traumatizing?
him. Yeah,
Well, I mean, he got traumatized, boy. He had to run
with the rocket launch blowing up.
Oh, I forgot about the rocket launch. Yeah, that was 2 hours on him. Him going to, man, that was the funniest episode when he went to Hollywood to Warner Brothers studio and had to fire the studio.
But isn't that what Roman is? Like, Roman is the self-identification of like a powerful, insecure man.
Yeah.
Like, that's the epitome of insecurity I've ever seen in a TV character. Even in the funeral episode of last week, where he starts the episode off so freaking cocky. Like, it's crazy how he's practicing a speech. And then he gets broken down by the end because he realizes, like, oh, he's actually a very insecure, childlike person who uses that insecurity to step on other people and to demean them and to say the most awful things and do the most awful things. I'm sorry to interrupt you, everybody, but I'm just like, I don't know, man. I think you're giving too much grace.
Well,
nah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's just a man child, but he is developed though. He's developed over time, and he's gonna do more developing. And I think that's where, at least like Sabrina said earlier, like at least with his character, he feels like the most optimistic ending out of everybody, because
that's kind of true. Yeah.
At least when Kendall was like there by the river, I thought he was about to jump over.
I thought he was gonna kill himself.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I thought when he was going like on the elevator, I'm like, oh no, he's gonna be in the background of their little signing photo. He's gonna go like jump.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be wild.
Could you imagine?
I thought for sure he was gonna. I thought it was the only thing that stopped me from really thinking it though was the security guy in the back.
Right.
But I was like, if he was alone, I would 100% think he was gonna, jump into the river or something.
He was thinking about it too. He's probably thinking about it.
Yeah. And then like back to all the Roman stuff, like at the end, I do believe I think has a weight lifted off of him. I think he has been like insecure about all this, and I don't think exactly what Kendall said. I don't think he even wanted it. I just think he wanted Logan to think that he wanted it and to want to get Logan's approval about it. And that's basically it. I don't think he wanted that position. He has consistently made terrible decisions, but like RB3 said, and I probably hate Roman the most out of all the siblings. So like take everything I'm saying, but like know that I dislike him. But even in the moment with Carrie, when Carrie was picking up her things from Logan's apartment, and he was the only one that treated her like a human at that time. She dropped everything. Everyone's kind of like making fun of her and being very rude to her. And I don't like Carrie either. But Roman was the one that's like, guys, like seriously, maybe you need to back off. And he's helping her up and he's helping her grab her things. So I think there are those moments of clarity with him. And I do think moving forward, he's probably going to be the one that has the most character development. I think Shiv is going to be unhappy, stuck in her loveless marriage with a husband that does have the upper hand now. I think Kendall is going to be this person who thinks he's destined for something that he will never now have. And he's never going to have an opportunity to have it, especially not in this capacity ever again. And then Roman is going to move forward with his life, with his money that he has, because again, they're all getting a ton of money, more than we can possibly even imagine. But I think he's gonna move forward in a much better way and develop as a character, especially when we see those moments with Carrie. We see all the punishment he likes to do for himself when he feels sad or down or whatever, because he feels like he deserves it because of the abuse that he went through. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but out of all the characters looking back, I think he's the only one that they mentioned that he actually got like physically abused by Logan. Of course, they were all mentally abused, but even like when Logan smacked him and Kendall came to his defense immediately, and he was like, like, don't hit my brother. And then when Tom was talking down to Shiv in the election episode, and Kendall came to his defense. I feel like Kendall has those moments where he wants to step forward and protect them, but his own kind of like grandiose like vision and the way he sees himself prevents him from having that as an actual part of his life, but it does come out in moments. So I think all that to say, Roman is going to end up being the happiest in life probably. And he is free of now this cycle of going for something that he didn't want.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too. But I think the Carrie part too was also kind of going back to your Logan part, where he was the closest to Logan. And I think he might have seen in the end that Carrie made Logan happy in her own weird way. So I think he saw that she was still there for her father when no one else was, because they were actually very close, even though obviously he still kept Carrie on the down low when it came to using his power to actually do something. But I still think, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say real quick, that was so funny in the funeral episode when Carrie and
that was great. That was a good scene.
The side pieces and wives. I'm like, oh man,
side pieces.
And one of them was Brian Cox's real life wife.
I heard that.
Yeah. The one that Carolyn said like, oh, this was my Carrie. That's actually Brian Cox's wife.
At that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great line. I was like, that's funny as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, real quick. I just think it's funny how like 3 episodes ago, remember when we tried to get a Nazi elected just so they can, destroy this deal, and the deal still went through? Remember? Like I kept saying that throughout this episode because I was like, this is what y'all do. Y'all do these awful, disgusting moves, and then it backfires in a way where they're like, well, that didn't work, but oh well. And it's like, bro, that has repercussions on a different scale. I think that's absolutely hysterical. Last thing I want to say, and I'll give you guys the final word, is deuces to Hugo. Hugo is out like a light. I was like, deuces, that guy is gone. I love that scene where Tom walks in and everyone's shaking his hand, and Hugo comes up to him and he doesn't even look at him. And he's like, where's Carolina? Where's Carolina? And I was like, yo, he's gone, bro. He's done.
Right. Yeah. Hugo was snaking from the very beginning, though.
Oh, he's a snake, man.
Absolutely.
Super snake. Any final thoughts, RB3, on this show and season?
Great show, great finale. I felt like they nailed it as much as they could. In terms of finales that I've seen recently, I mean, we're gonna talk about Barry. I thought that finale was atrocious. So, I'm excited. I'm excited that at least one HBO Sunday came to a conclusion, satisfyingly. And the other stuff didn't go as well. But this was great, though. This is great.
Sabrina.
I think this show overall is so special. I think the character work that has been done here to make these absolutely atrocious people, and again, all the performances and the actors, like, definitely have to mention, like, Culkin, Sarah Snook, Jeremy Strong. Jeremy Strong is absolutely incredible. Matthew McFadden as well. Like, the work that they put into these characters and that the writers with them like masterfully crafted, because it's the little details. It's as I was binging the entire series ahead of this season, like it's just masterful. I think this might be the best show of all time. I think it went out in a way that I completely disagree with, and I hate to see. I know we were fated from the beginning to have them all be extremely unhappy and just continue this stuff, but I really just wanted a W from someone. So I guess Robin is the only one that got the closest to a W. But yeah, absolutely incredible. And then one more thing, Greg slapping Tom back for the first time. Like, that was really baller. I love to see that. And then, what Brian Cox did with Logan Roy's character from the start till now, it makes seeing Logan talk on screen. I know we didn't get a lot of him in this season, of course. He scares me. I understand the power and the presence that he had over his children, the way he speaks, the way he acts, and him telling them, you are not serious people, and them understanding at the end of all of this that they're not serious people.
He was right.
Definitely heartbreaking, but fantastic.
Yeah, I think the show's great. And I feel like RB3, you and I have talked about it for a while now. And I've always told you that this show is a great example of like just the idea of this corporate structure and this capitalistic structure that we live in, where people in power use their power in the most convenient and awful ways. I remember I go back to, there's so many incredible episodes from this series, but I go back to Bore on the Floor. That episode.
Yeah,
that episode was crazy, but I remember the I told you every three. That scene where Tom is talking to Kendall or Rome about how the hunting goes, and where they're like, yeah, we put them all in a pin, and then we go up on a high tower, and then we have people pick out the pigs, and then we shoot him from high above. And then Tom is like, isn't that cheating? Isn't that like not real hunting? And they're like, yeah, it's all rigged. It's all rigged so we can win this game. And I was like, that's kind of what it is. That's the epitome of what the show is talking about. It's all rigged. They just make up their own rules, set it up, and then shoot people from above. And they'll do anything for the paycheck and for the money. And that's kind of what the show has always been about. And that's why I've always really enjoyed it as a analysis on just the darkness of this, big money type of people. RB3, go ahead.
And one more person who we forgot to mention, who's cashing in on the biggest check, I think of all, is Willa, who's getting that brand new Logan Roy house, putting in a couch print.
Oh, Willa.
Yeah. Living off of Connor's failed presidential dime. She's living it up. So it's good. You know what I mean? Shout out to Willa. She worked the hardest out of everybody in the whole series, and she got it. She earned it.
There's going to be so much unanswered questions. We didn't get to that. Obviously, I wish we kind of did, to speculate what's going to happen. But I don't think Mankin's going to be president. I think he's going to lose. I don't think Connor is going to go to Slovenia. So I think Willa is going to be stuck there, and Connor is going to be stuck trying to figure out what to do next. I think Mattson is going to get, I don't know, man. I think he's going to get creamed.
Because Abba situation was crazy.
It's going to come out. Bro, the last thing he said in this episode was, Abba! And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm right here.
Right. Now I'm rolling like that.
Right next to her.
Buddy. Yeah, they ain't rolling like that in America. In Sweden, nah, they might get away with that there, but not in America. But that was different. Also, just one quick shout out, we shout out all the actors, Jeremy Strong, all the actors, but the guy who played Roman Kira, I cannot pronounce his name. Roman, the actor who played Roman.
Kieran Culkin.
Yeah, there we go. Great performance, especially in the last few episodes. I think if there's an Emmy conversation to be had out of all because I think he's one of the only people in Succession. I think he did win an Emmy one of the years, but give him an Emmy this year. Because he deserves it. He definitely.
Jeremy Strong has won for sure.
Matthew McFadden.
Matthew won too. Yeah. And I think right now, Kieran Culkin and Jeremy Strong are both going for lead actor. Low key. Oh, gosh, they're both so good. I want it to be a tie. Give him the tie.
I think it'll be Kieran. I think they'll give it to him for sure. But Sabrina, you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah. J. Smith Cameron as well, as Jerry, and Alan Ruck, of course, as Connor Roy. I know, of course, like Connor and Willa, they've kind of just been in the background, living their lives, doing their thing, getting married, even when his father passed away. I think they're going to be living a pretty decent life, as decent as two rich people who maybe... I think they grew to love each other. But another thing I want to say about Jerry is that, of course, she's keeping her job. She's still coming out on top.
Yeah.
She was an absolute boss throughout this entire series. And even Roman getting like the martini at the end, that's like her drink of choice that they've talked about multiple times together. And he's like ordered for her and stuff like that. I think it kind of shows, I don't know, like her impact on the character as a whole. And like, how serious he was about not seeing her this episode. He's like, no, I don't want to see Jerry. She needs to get out of here. But yeah, she's coming out like a boss. So shout out Jerry. Yeah. She's mother to us all.
Yeah.
Tom's got her back, and she's gonna be in another position of power.
I think Tom is gonna fail spectacularly. I think he's gonna be a terrible leader, but whatever. I hate Tom, guys.
Tom wins, bro. That's my entire Succession thoughts summed up in one word or one phrase. Hey. Tom wins. That's it. He won. He always wanted this. He always wanted to have this power. He's a weasel till the end of times, but he weaseled his way to the top in a weird way. So
you know what? Remember the scene where he takes the chicken off of Logan's plate?
Yeah.
And eats it?
Yeah. Tom, man. He's Tom. Winning. But yeah, I think it'll be short-lived, the whole Mattson and Tom thing. It's crazy to think. I know, going back to you, Sabrina, last thought. What's his face? Mattson was like, yeah, you know, I kind of want to sleep with your wife, and that's why I don't want her in a position of power. So
Yeah.
he demoted her because he didn't want to be tempted to attempt to sleep with her.
I think it goes back to the conversation you had about how this is all a reflection of like corporate
Yeah.
America, or
That's
just
what
even
happens.
society as a whole. 100%. You will look at a woman differently. Like, you'll be like, no, like, I want to have the option to potentially sleep with her one day,
So
even
I
though
can't
we
have
know.
her in a
Yeah, so I can't
position.
have her as CEO. Plus, she's
Yeah,
too powerful. She is helping me out a little too much. She's a little too smart. I can't play all these
Crazy.
games with her. But yeah, it also goes back to the conversation of Tom, where he's like, he's cucked in his workplace, and he's also been cucked in real life, basically, by Shiv and by Nate and everyone else. And now Mattson, it's such a power move for Mattson to tell Shiv's husband, hey, yeah, I want to sleep with her. Like, and Tom's not saying a single thing because he's such a kiss ass. And you could see it in that moment with him not saying a single thing. Mattson knows he is weak. He will not do anything to stop me, no matter what it is, even when it comes to sleeping with his wife, which is like just a barbaric ask. Like, it's just so like, it's so weird. But yeah, that's how he knew 100% he was going to be CEO.
Yeah. Go ahead, RB3.
Yeah, no, and now that was and that's just so sick because like for one that's the worst kind of litmus test you could ever like give to, just, you know, I don't know, like you said, Sabrina, it's like top tier misogyny, top tier everything wrong with corporate America. But also too, you're kind of mentioning, Andres, like how, like, you know, they wanted to keep the temptation separate. And that was honestly the lame excuse that the hip hop community gave for a long time for why there wasn't like female rappers. Like, seriously, there was a lot, like, if you go back and watch a lot of like old rap producers, they'll be like, yeah, nah, I saw this great female rapper, but I just couldn't sign her because I wanted to F her, I wanted to sleep with her. I'm like, bro, what? Like, this is crazy. And that was just the standard of the industry, and this is the standard of you know, this Succession world, which is, you know, like you said, a reflection of real life.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And I feel like there's a lot communicated in that, in this season and in this series as well. But either way, it's weird, but they did it, I guess, by finishing this show in a bizarre position where Tom gets what he wants, but at what cost, I guess. But still, Frank and Carl, what was it, like 5 episodes ago, laughing at the idea of Tom being CEO, and now he's CEO. And then them both being gone, I think it's kind of hysterical, though. I think that's kind of funny. But either way, guys, those were our thoughts on Succession. Obviously, it was a lot of thoughts. It was a very long conversation, but hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you guys thought of the season and the series as a whole and where each character ended up. But RB3, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DirectorRB3.
You can find me on Twitter at Sabrina on Film, and then Instagram at Sabrina X Monica.
And you can find me at Squad Leader Ace on all platforms. So, oh yeah, you can find us at First Cut and First Cut TMO as well. And make sure you guys subscribe here to First Cut, to the YouTube channel as well. But either way, guys, for the First Cut crew, we're going to be peacing out. So peace. Deuces.
It's either me or you. It's either me